And here we go. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome in. That music can mean one thing and one thing only. It's time for Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by our friends at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. It's Top 5 Tuesday on the program, and Calvin White is in the saddle alongside yours truly, Wade Neely. We'll be with you for the next couple hours, going from preps to pros, breaking down a little bit of this, breaking down a little bit of that. But most importantly, just going to have some fun over the next couple here on this good-looking Tuesday. Calvin, how we doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to be back. And hopefully, as always, bring the people another good show.
Looking forward to a good show. We're looking forward to a good couple of hours here. We've got a big show lined up on this Top 5 Tuesday. We'll walk it from the back, and it is Top 5 Tuesday. So kind of closing things out. Last week, Calvin and I bid adieu to our loved ones, and we talked about, places to take them on a date or two before high school football season kind of got underway. Well, that was in the past. This officially football season. It's high school season, especially for Calvin and I. And we'll talk about things that we love about high school football. More importantly, perhaps, kind of the smaller Americana type feels. It transcends across even, to the 6A school and those 6A realms. But we're really looking for what really makes high school football fun. So Calvin and I will break down the things that we love about those Friday night lights, which will be here sooner than we know. So buckle up, folks. That'll be our Top 5 Tuesday segment. We'll also get into the grab bag in hour number 2. We will get a chance to go from preps to pros. Calvin, one of our stories, literally in one story, we'll go from preps to pros. We'll tell you guys about a connection between high school football, a state championship, and the NFL, all kind of intertwined in one tale there. So a big news piece coming up as part of our grab bag. Also on this Top 5 Tuesday, it is Tuesday, so we will visit with the one and only Chip Walters, the Blue Raider voice. Big day on MTSU's campus today as they celebrated MTSU Football Media Day. As you can see, Calvin and I are not there. But we did get some love. We appreciate our friends at MTSU who threw Main Street Sports Today up on the banner, celebrating media that celebrates them. So we're proud to be included. A little cheap shout out from our alma mater there, Calvin.
Yeah, it was, even if we're not, there in body, we are there in spirit. So appreciate those folks for giving us a tiny shout out.
Giving us a little love amongst all the other media that were there. More on that later. More on that later in the week. There might have been some of the crew from Main Street Sports Today that was there on hand today. We'll get the latest from that as the week continues. Also, coming up inside this first hour, speaking of college football, our conference preview section continues, and today we get into our first Power 4 conference. We will get into the inner workings of the Big 12 with Zach. My brain has escaped me here. I wanted to say Zach White, but I was mixing in Calvin White. Zach Smith, our good friend from the WACO Tribune, covers Baylor on a 24/7 basis, but he obviously has got the goods on the rest of the Big 12 as well. So we'll catch up with Zach Smith again from the WACO Tribune. Calvin, the Big 12 was absolute anarchy last year. I was there for it in the sense, give me every Big 12 game because you never know what the heck was going to happen. I'm hoping we kind of get some more of that this year.
Yeah, especially in the part of the country we live in, we're always, watching the SEC or hearing about the SEC, and really most of the time that's all you hear about talked on TV and all the shows and things like that are the SEC. So I'm excited to kind of, branch out with Zach and maybe get to a conference that we usually don't get to hear a lot about during the season in our part of the woods.
Should be fun. Again, Zach Smith of the WACO Tribune. He's going to join us at 2:30. Kind of a little bit of a switch from our usual schedule, but he'll join us at 2:30 today, so we'll catch up and spend a lot of time with Zach as we talk all things Big 12. We also will talk Atlanta Braves. We might even sneak in a little Houston Astros. We will have some MLB headlines to break down. That's all coming up inside this first hour here, again, on Main Street Sports Today, where we are presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Calvin, we've kind of buttered the viewers and the watchers and the listeners up a little bit. Did I miss anything? It seems like we got a pretty big show on tap here on this Top 5 Tuesday.
I think you touched it all. Let's do it.
Okay, so Calvin's ready. I'm ready. Our producer, Mark Rogers, making the magic happen behind the glass, is always ready. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's officially start the show today with the Tuesday Rundown.
Hold on, I'm not ready.
Just kidding, folks. Producer Mark gonna get
This
his
is the Rundown.
Oh, I love it. I love it. I love it. Producer Mark keeping us on our toes here. Let's go to the Tuesday Rundown, folks. I'm in a good mood because my Astros defeated the Marlins last night by a convincing margin, as a matter of fact. 8-2 was your final to kick off our MLB scoreboard from last night. And in other MLB action, more on this game coming up in just a moment, but it was the Brewers defeating the Braves. They did get it in. No severe weather impacting that one. But unfortunately, again, for Atlanta, it was Brewers 3, Braves 1. That was your Tuesday results, mostly in all MLB.
Coming up on the schedule tonight, the Astros are at the Marlins. First pitch for that game will be at 5:40 p.m. Then the Brewers are at the Braves at 6:15. And a little WNBA action, the Dallas Wings are at the New York Liberty at 6 p.m. You can find that game on NBA TV. The Washington Mystics are at the Chicago Sky at 7 p.m. The Indiana Fever are at the Los Angeles Sparks at 9 p.m. You can watch that game on CBS Sports. The Connecticut Sun are at the Phoenix Mercury at 9 p.m. And finally, the Minnesota Lynx are at the Seattle Storm. That game is also at 9 p.m. Ladies and gentlemen, those were your scores. That was your schedule, and that concludes today's rundown.
That brings us into your top story, presented as always by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly. I'm still tripping out about producer Mark hitting the pause button on us a minute ago, folks. Top story produced, as always, by the fine folks over at Piggly Wiggly at Neely's Meal in Columbia. Make sure you check them out for your delicious daily deli lunch options, where everything is cost plus 10 at the cash register. Once again, Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Meal, Columbia, bringing you today's top story. Calvin, one of the other kind of big things, we talk about schedules getting released. We talk about training camp starting. We talk about the NFL with its Hall of Fame game last week. But if you're not in the preseason Hall of Fame game, the first real kind of checklist that you get to check off every year is kind of when you get that first little glimpse of the old depth chart. And it turns out our friends in Nashville at the Tennessee Titans, they've released their first version of that depth chart. It is very unofficial, so much so, according to Jim Wyatt at TitansOnline.com, that unofficial is wrote in bold letters across the top, and it's also noted as of August 3rd. So that's even a couple days removed from now. And they still have a couple days to go before they get ready to go down to Tampa for their Saturday preseason debut. But Calvin, as we kind of take our first peek at the depth chart, number one, that kind of signifies, hey, this thing is getting a little closer and closer. We can almost, you can hear the pads popping, you can see the sweat flying, but we can almost taste the football in the air when this depth chart gets released here.
Yeah, like you said, the depth chart getting released is usually the first sign that the season's getting close. Obviously, a lot of these players were with the Titans last year, but paired with all the newcomers they have, I'm excited to see how they look in the first preseason game this weekend.
Should be fun. The Titans, as I said, going down to Tampa. They're actually going to travel. They'll have a joint practice beginning on Thursday. Should have a little bit of a session on Friday. Those are always testy. You see the highlights every year, no matter what two teams it is. It seems like somebody, there's a little extracurricular that goes on in those joint sessions, but they will strap it up for their preseason on Saturday, again, down at Tampa. One thing, a couple things of note, most of these courtesy of our pal at TennesseeTitans.com, Jim Wyatt. Calvin, we should not be surprised, but as you look at the depth chart, there it is. For the first time in all its glory, we can see the name, Cam Ward. It would have been an absolute shock if he were not listed as your starting quarterback. But just kind of seeing him cemented there just kind of makes you feel good, just kind of lets you know you're a little bit closer as you get your first dose of the depth chart there. Cameron Ward, officially, as he's listed on the depth chart, making things official there.
Yeah, and you're not going to draft a guy number one overall to not be your starting quarterback, I wouldn't think. But, I think that when Will Levis kind of went out with that that shoulder injury, it was kind of put the nail in the coffin that Cam Ward was going to be the starting quarterback. Now we just have to see. Obviously they didn't improve the roster a ton, I don't think, but I guess we're just going to have to wait and see how much Cam Ward is going to be able to kind of elevate the roster as long as everybody else stays healthy.
Obviously, yes, very well said. And yeah, barring something crazy, when you go 1-1, I mean, it's pretty much assumed that you're going to be the guy. There are occasional situations where it might make sense to sit and learn a little bit, but the Titans are certainly not in that situation here. You talk about Ward, you can't go too far without talking about your receivers. And, a lot has been discussed. Calvin Ridley has looked great. The ghost of Tyler Lockett has kind of looked okay at times in camp. But those two in particular, Ridley and Lockett, alongside Van Jefferson, are listed as your starters. Beyond that, though, Calvin, you kind of got to dig deep a little bit. Bryce Oliver, DK, the draft pick, and as well as Alike Ayamayor kind of are all on the depth chart. But, man, the Titans, that's one area that I am a little concerned about, and I have a lot of faith in Ward kind of building camaraderie and kind of building relationships with these guys. But outside of Ridley, there's not a ton of star power on this Titans roster in terms of wide receiver.
No, and I mean, even if you think about it, last year with the year that the Titans had, Calvin Ridley still caught for over 1,000 yards, and even Tony Pollard ran for over 1,000 yards. So I think that I'm interested to see how the offensive line's going to hold up. They've got some guys that have been, with the team for a couple of years. Peter Skoronski, Lloyd Cushenberry, who signed to be the starting center a year ago, still working his way back from injury. So when they get him back, that should be a big boost to that offensive line. But I think the offensive line, that's been their biggest problem the last couple of years. If they can get even a decent offensive line in there instead of just 3 or 4 dudes that are just turnstiles, I think that if they can keep Cam Ward upright, I think Cam Ward is going to be able to obviously have a little bit more time to make some plays, try to get the ball downfield to some of those receivers.
Absolutely, and that's kind of what I've said, in a sense, to Mo and some other guests over the last couple of months. I think if the offensive line is better, which I know is obviously a little bit of an undertaking, but I feel like if the offensive line is better, you can maybe mask some of that depth that, to me at least, is an issue at wide receiver in terms of real star power. But if the offensive line is kind of porous, turnstiles, like you said, over the last couple of seasons, not only does Ward have to kind of flee for his life, but also it makes it really tough for some of those receivers to kind of get open. So I'm with you there. And you mentioned Cushenberry. He's listed on this roster and on this depth chart, but he's also listed officially kind of in parentheses because he's on the PUP list. He will be a key piece. He was such a big factor, I think, last year for the Titans, but before his injury. Dan Moore, you see, who's obviously one of the most talked about acquisitions for the Titans, listed as your starting left tackle. One other thing of note, Calvin, I found this kind of interesting on a nugget from Jim Wyatt. Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears were kind of listed as 1A and 1B last year. They kind of had a slash kind of separating the two of them. This year, it doesn't look like that's the case. We clearly see Pollard listed as the starter. We clearly see Spears listed behind him. And beyond that, asked Teresa Walker about this a couple weeks ago, where do we kind of view the running back room? Because the Titans, I kind of like what they got. Khalil Mullings out of Michigan, my old Wolverine, running back there. He's kind of listed as that third guy, but they still got Chestnut, Mims, and Jamar Jefferson all in there. So running back, as much depth concerns as there might be in the wide receiver position, you feel pretty good about Pollard and Spears, and then you got some decent guys sprinkled in behind them.
Yeah, and then Tony Pollard, Tajay Spears, really good catching running backs. Obviously Brian Callahan's offense is a lot different than what Titans fans saw the last couple of years with Mike Vrabel, when they would just give Derrick Henry the ball, 25, 30 times a game and just expect him to kind of make a play, and Tony Pollard and Tajay Spears are much better pass catchers than Derrick Henry was. So they can kind of, throw those guys out there, maybe in the flat or out of the backfield or something to get them the ball and try to get them to make a play in space. Titans
offensive depth chart being posted there. Defensively, one thing I'm going to be continued. This guy was a favorite of mine last year, and he's listed as one of the starting cornerbacks this year. Second-year pro Jarvis Brownlee Jr. This is a guy that I was impressed with a lot last year, like I said, and I'm kind of curious to see what he can do coming up in his second go-around with the Titans. Another guy, speaking of second go-arounds, man, it was a tough year last year for L'Jarius Sneed. Had high hopes for him. Kind of largely didn't pan out. He's still listed as a member of the team's PUP list, so he's kind of in parentheses there. And Calvin, I'm curious, when you look at we focus so much just kind of naturally because it's been kind of a dumpster fire the last couple of seasons, offense. What do you kind of look at? What's catching your eye, if anything, on the defensive side of the ball heading into 25?
I think that if the Titans can have a much better pass rush than they've had the past couple of years, that can kind of take some of that pressure off the secondary to where they don't get lit up for 25, 30 points a game like they did last year. They've got good players on the defensive line: Sebastian Joseph Day, Devondre Sweat, Jeffrey Simmons, Arden Key. Jeffrey Simmons hasn't been as good the last year or two than he was when he first came into the league. But if the Titans can kind of get to the quarterback a little bit more, not necessarily get some sacks, but if they can just put some pressure on the quarterback, they can take some pressure off that secondary to where opponents aren't just throwing it all over the field on them.
I'm with you, and I don't know that this is their intent. I think if you ask the Titans brass, they probably would like a little more depth. But it feels like they are a little shallow, in particular on the defensive line. But it also maybe feels like you can get by just a little bit with that lack of overall depth when you got a guy like Simmons and Sweat. That may be one of the best. If they're both at their peak, that feels like one of the best interiors in the NFL. And then that allows you don't necessarily need an all-pro edge rusher if you got those two guys that are capable of wreaking so much havoc up the middle, it feels like.
Yeah, and then, talking about guys like Jeffrey Simmons, especially having Jeffrey Simmons and Devondre Sweat, they're on the line together. It's kind of like the old Aaron Donald effect. Aaron Donald was so good that he just ate double teams to kind of allow his teammates to get in there and rush the quarterback. So if those two guys can kind of team up and put some pressure on those opposing offensive linemen, it could free up some space for some of those other defensive guys to get in there, pressure the quarterback, get some sacks.
Other guys listed on this depth chart as we close up our top story here. Arden Key, we mentioned a number of times. He's a guy that could go a number of different ways, but he's listed as one of your starting outside linebackers. Right back behind him is Femi Oladejo, the Titans' second round draft pick this season. James Williams Sr., who by all accounts has had a pretty good camp thus far. Cody Barton and Draymond Jones round out your linebackers, at least at the starting level, entering this weekend. We mentioned Brownlee, but you also have Roger McCreary and Amani Hooker. You kind of know what you're going to get out of Hooker, but Xavier Woods, they got high hopes for this guy, and listed behind him is the Titans' third round draft pick, Kevin Winston Jr. So the Titans secondary, again, with Sneed kind of in the mix, kind of lingering. Not going to say this is going to be the best secondary in the NFL this season, but the potential is seemingly there for a good unit. Calvin, I know you want to talk special teams too. I know that's what you're itching to get into, but it is worth mentioning. Joey Sly, they got high hopes for him at your kicking position this year. And Johnny Hecker, yes, you lose a really punting at the Titans has kind of been a afterthought when you talk about the ability that Kern and Stonehouse previously, but you bring in Johnny Hecker, who's got some all-pro chops. So not necessarily a massive drop-off. You could have done worse, but Sly and Hecker will handle your kicking duties. James Prochet, who they brought in over the offseason, he's listed as your starting punt returner. Jaquan Jackson listed as your starting kick returner. Morgan Cox, the all-pro himself, returns as your long snapper. Calvin, the depth chart has been released. This obviously very subject to change, but it always kind of makes you feel good as you head into this first of 3 scheduled preseason games this year.
Yeah, and like I said earlier, it'll be interesting to see how much this roster and depth chart shakes up, between now and when that first game of the regular season comes along. But until then, I guess we just kind of sit back and see how the guys look together, see how Cam Ward looks, and just see how the rest of the newcomers look, and kind of just wait until that first regular season game.
Just wait until that regular season game at Denver early in the month of September. And more importantly, just pray for no or minimal injuries, I think, is everybody's chief concern there. But that was your Titans depth chart, and that is your top story presented, as always, by the fine folks over at Piggly Wiggly at Neely's Mill in Columbia. Again, make sure you check them out for your delicious daily deli lunch options where everything is cost plus 10 at the cash register. Top story in the books. We're going to kick it to our first break. We got a mini segment coming up, and we're going to flip things around just a touch. But when we come back, we will have this day in Braves history. We'll talk about the Braves and the Brewers from last night, and we'll get you prepped as hour number 1 of Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia, rolls right along after this.
Closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs. Winning just got closer.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags, tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all, a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need...
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
3-3.
Busy bee. Guys, not yet. Not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now I'm ready, guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
On this date, that's August the 5th, folks, 1973, the knuckleballer Phil Niekro twirls the first no-hitter for the franchise in 12 years and the first since the Braves moved to Atlanta in 1966. Niekro walked 3 but struck out 4, did not surrender a hit as the Braves blanked the Padres 9-0. Shout out to our other co-host, Mo Patton. I did that just for you, Mo. We'll continue with this day in Braves history as best we can without you. Mo out today, but Calvin White sitting in the saddle alongside yours truly, Wade Neely. And Calvin, that was a great day in Braves history. You were hoping maybe to string together a nice result after a little dash of momentum after the Reds game on Sunday, but Atlanta was done in. It was a tough one last night. Runs were at a premium in a 3-1 loss to Milwaukee.
Yeah, Jerickson Profar hit a solo home run in, I believe, the first or second inning, and the Brewers tacked on a 2-run homer, and not long after that, in the third or fourth inning, I'm pretty sure, and no more runs after that. Braves couldn't put any more on the board, and another close loss for the Braves this year.
Tough one there for Atlanta, as again 3-1 your final, only 6 hits, 3 apiece in that ball game. As the Brewers, Mo and I talked about it yesterday, they have the best record in the bigs They improved to 68-44. Atlanta falls to 47-64, and Atlanta also falls under 500 now at 26-27 in games played at home. It was long ball and long ball only. Calvin was right. It was Profar with a leadoff homer in the bottom of the first. Ball travels 390 feet and gives Atlanta a 1-0 lead. But because the Braves kind of can't have nice things this season, Mo and I just talked about Isaac Collins and the tear he's been on. He was your Rookie of the Month for the month of July, and so much talk about Mizorowski maybe winning Rookie of the Year, but now it looks like Drake Baldwin is kind of wrestling control away, but Collins still lingering in the mix, and he clubs a 3-run homer in the 4th inning. Contreras and Yelich both scoring. And Calvin, that was the only runs in the game. We mentioned it was a low-scoring affair, only 6 hits total. It was kind of a classic throwback in that sense, but it was a Profar dinger in the first and then one from Collins that Milwaukee managed to make hold up.
Yeah, and that's, we've talked about this the last couple of times. We talked about the Braves, and it's kind of been the case for them all season of close losses, not being able to put runs and hits on the board and get guys on base. And, the Brewers have been kind of flip-flopping with, the Cubs and the Tigers the last couple of weeks for best record in baseball. And the Braves just, it seems like they haven't had much good luck go their way this year.
No, I haven't had good luck. Meanwhile, on the other end of the spectrum, it feels like Milwaukee's everything is kind of coming up roses for them. We talked about Mizorowski and obviously the electric run. And, man, that's what makes it really sting, Calvin, for us here in Nashville. When you run up against these guys at the bigs, it doesn't feel quite as nice and nice and pleasant when you see Mizorowski and when you see Collins doing what they're doing against one of your teams at the big league level. When, just right down the road at First Horizon Park this time last year, we were cheering on these guys. Now they're kind of our enemies in that sense.
Yeah, and, it's just been a really, really bad year for the Braves. It seems like I've watched games this year where it seems like we could throw me, you, and Mo out there for the opposing rotation and get some of those guys out. But yeah, just been a really bad year for the Braves. Just kind of, I bet they're just kind of hoping to get everybody healthy and, just get out of this year as quick as they can, just rebuild, get ready for next year.
I'm with you. And as Mo, the resident Braves fan and expert on the show, he said often in these last couple of weeks, we'll talk a little Braves, but only a little. We did our hat tip to Mo there. For what it's worth, Peralta will go up against Wentz tonight in your pitching matchup. Peralta enters with a 12-5 record, 3.08 ERA. Wentz coming in for the Braves, 2-2 with a 5.02. And as Calvin told you guys during the rundown, 6:15 on FanDuel Sports South will be your destination there. So a Braves update. Also, a little This Day in Braves history in the books. That means it's time to kick it to a break. And when we come back, our college football previews. We've had a lot of fun dissecting all the different conferences. And it's time to dip our toe into the madness that is the Big 12. Our good friend Zach Smith from the WACO Tribune is on deck. He will join us on the other side of this timeout. We'll talk about one of the most chaotic leagues in all of college football last season. And he'll give us a preview of what's in store for 2025. Once again, Zach Smith of the WACO Tribune will be with us next. It's a quick timeout here on Main Street Sports Today, where we are presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia.
They walk among us, but at 240 miles per hour, they become something more. They're thrill seekers, risk takers, and maybe just a little bit unhinged. Buckle up. This new era of speed, this racing revolution, it's just getting started.
Hi, I'm Stephanie Miller. Main Street Media is partnering with Borchetta Bourbon Music City Grand Prix at the Nashville Superspeedway to send a family of 4 to the race August 31st. To register, please visit any Main Street Media website and look for the Register Here banner. You'll also receive some fantastic Borchetta Bourbon Music City merchandise. We look forward to seeing you at the race.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Welcome back in, folks. Hour number 1 of Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by the fine folks at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Wade Neely sitting in the saddle alongside Calvin White. And Calvin, we love our guests on this show, and we pride ourselves on kind of scanning the universe. You mentioned in the pre-run of show that one of the cool things, we just get inundated with SEC talk on this program. And so we kind of turned outside of our normal lens here when we went to our Big 12 preview today. We went to our good friend Zach Smith, who is the Baylor football beat writer at the WACO Tribune Herald, and he joins us now. Zach, good afternoon. How we doing? May have you muted there, Zach.
My bad. How are we doing?
Hey,
Doing great. Are we better? Got me now?
We got you, brother. And
doing good.
well,
Thanks for having me. It's plenty hot down here in Texas. I'm sure it's warm in Tennessee too.
It is blazing. It is blazing. And Zach, as we welcome you in, we love our guests on this show so much so that when I dig up on you, I see you're a big Sparty guy. So I didn't wear my Michigan Wolverines gear on the show today out of respect and love for you. So I hope you appreciate that.
Well, I mean, we don't have to cheat to win our national championship.
Okay, all right, now the gloves are off, ladies and gentlemen.
I know we just started here, but we're already turning negative. But we're talking Big 12, not Big 10.
Okay, I just had to clear there. We'll get the Dukes up a little bit later, maybe as the segment continues. But Zach, thank you for joining us. And yeah, let's just start. We teased this earlier in the show. The Big 12 was just, as a neutral observer, one of the most fun leagues, I think, and most fun seasons in a long, long time. Is there any way we can expect the mayhem that we saw last season in this league?
I mean, I think it's kind of expected at this point, right? There really is no Georgia. There's no Ohio State. There's no Clemson in this league that is like far and away above, everybody else in the league. So even if you're Arizona State, who I think is probably the preseason favorite, or Kansas State, or you're Houston, like Houston didn't have a very good year last year, but I think there's a lot to like about Houston. And so, from the top to the bottom, like the spread for all those games isn't going to be a lot. And I think that's just going to cause so much chaos, and it is so much fun to watch. And I think, a lot of these teams bring back a lot of high power offenses, a lot of quarterbacks. And so I think we're going to kind of throw it back to kind of the old school Big 12, where there's a lot of offense, there's a lot of fireworks, and there's a lot of chaos. And you never know kind of what's going to happen week to week. And that's the beauty of the conference. And I know Brett Yormark has wanted to have kind of a power, but, in this new era of college football, that might take a bit. And there's certainly some candidates out there to become that power. But for now, this year, man, it's just a wide open race. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were like 8 or 9 teams that could win the Big 12 title. Would you? I mean, it's chaotic and it's awesome.
It's chaotic. It's awesome. And like I said, as a pure neutral observer, sign me up for everything that you just said. It is so much fun to watch. And I'm not one of these old college football purists. I don't need a 3-0 game. Give me the 60-57. First to 60 wins. I'm okay with that. Kind of with that being said, Zach, how do you kind of handicap a league that does seem to be so wide open? We saw Arizona State make such a darling kind of run last year. Surely there's at least somebody or a few teams maybe that at least as we sit here in early August that we maybe think are going to win this league, right?
Absolutely. I think there's certainly favorites for a reason. And it starts with the quarterback, and the Big 12, like I said before, has a lot of quarterbacks that come back with tons of experience. Sam Levitt, you mentioned Michigan State guy, a former Michigan State guy. He, certainly had a big year for Arizona State and was a huge reason why they got as far as they did, but they lost Cam Scatabo, and there's still some questions on who the running back's going to be and maybe some defensive questions for them. So I still think because of Sam Levitt and his high level that Arizona State is going to be a factor. Avery Johnson at Kansas State, another quarterback. I really think that, he's now, this is going to be what I think his third year as the starter or at least partial starter. I think he started half his freshman year or something. This and they've got a really good defense and a couple really good running backs, and so I really think that Kansas State, their floor is not very low. They might not win it all, but their floor is not very low. And then I look in my backyard, the team I'm around every single day at Sawyer Robertson, and man, like him and Jake Spavital, the offensive coordinator here in Waco, are just a match made in heaven. And that offense here in Waco is like throwing it back to the Art Briles days, where it's just throw it up, 60 points. Like I wouldn't be surprised if Baylor is one of the highest scoring offenses, not only in the Big 12, but in the country. So I really look at the quarterback, and there's a lot to pick from, and you could go down the line and just keep going. But those are really the three that, if I had to pick, I think the winner is going to come from that trio.
Zach, before last year, we kind of got used to watching Big 12 football and kind of seeing Oklahoma and Texas. And, back when RG3 was at Baylor, watching those three schools kind of run the league for a long time. What do you think that that's as simple as what kind of led to this level of parity in the conference was Oklahoma and Texas kind of making their way out? Now those teams that were, kind of in the middle of the pack for all those years are kind of fighting for first place now?
Yeah, and I think what you've seen since I guess it's only been a year since Texas and Oklahoma has officially left, but it's kind of, the trend is kind of continued with what those teams below those two have done. I think Texas and Oklahoma have still recruited kind of in the same pool as the other Big 12 teams, and everybody else is kind of fighting for the scraps. Now you've seen Texas Tech do some things. You've seen Baylor do some things recently. Houston's got some money to throw around, but I think the schools that were below Texas and Oklahoma in the Big 12 are still kind of operating as they were. And if you look back at some of those years when Texas and Oklahoma were just winning everything, it was kind of chaotic below those two. So I don't think what we're seeing now is out of the ordinary, if that makes any sense. But what Texas and Oklahoma leaving did was bring that chaos to the forefront and kind of make it just an everyday and every year thing, at least until someone like an Arizona State or a Baylor or a Texas Tech with all their money kind of takes that mantle. And no school is yet to do that. We're going to get there, but it might take a few years.
I'm looking at this, conference preview from ESPN. It says that Arizona State returned 79% of their production from last season, especially nowadays. How, it says that 79% is good for second best in the country in terms of returning production, especially nowadays. How rare is that to get that much production come back from year to year?
That's huge. I mean, that's how you build the next dynasty. That's how you become Ohio State or Clemson or Texas. That's what they're doing, and I think that credit to Kenny Dillingham, man. Like, that's a guy that loves Arizona State more than anything. Like, he went there. They kind of gave him his first opportunity in coaching, and yeah, he went to Florida State and Oregon and all that, but like that's huge. That's very rare. And I think that some of these Big 12 schools, like with all these quarterbacks that are coming back, I think what the Big 12 offers, maybe more than the SEC or the Big 10, is like an opportunity to compete for championships and having players stick around. They're sticking around because they know they can do that. And that's just making the conference as a whole better. And it's rare to see, but it's good to see.
Absolutely. We're talking with Zach Smith of the Waco Tribune, all things Big 12. And Zach, speaking of Waco, you just mentioned Baylor, obviously. And man, it feels like, talk about going from maybe death's door for that coaching staff and that program. Felt like they were kind of hanging in the balance. And I'm reading from Field Steel, but you mentioned, you got Sawyer Robertson projected as a first-team all quarterback in the Big 12, and then you also have Bryson Washington. The fact that you have those two, I don't know about the rest of their roster, but you tell me you maybe have the best QB and the best running back in the league, that seemingly could carry you a pretty long way.
Oh, and to add on to that, Baylor brings back 4 of 5 starters along the offensive line. That was.
I'm sold in. I'm buying a ticket right now for Baylor. You tell me that.
Hey, put it all on black. They were I think they finished with all the metrics or whatever, had them as the 9th best offensive line in the country last year, and you bring back 4 or 5 starters in addition to Sawyer and Bryson. Like I said, that the Baylor offense, get your popcorn ready because it's going to be fun. And Jake Spavital will coach some big names: Will Greer at West Virginia, and Geno Smith at West Virginia, and Johnny Manziel. That's a name everybody knows. That's the kind of potential that Baylor and Sawyer Robertson and just this offense has to just absolutely kind of electrify things. It just that so happens that you have Dave Aranda, who is maybe the most introverted, thoughtful coach. So he's not the best. He's not going to get out there like Joey McGuire or Mike Gundy and say all this rah hoopla stuff and sell it. But it's there. Just wait. It's going to be fun to watch.
It was exciting to see them kind of be. Obviously, still got games to play, but I was just excited to kind of see them because when they're good, it feels like college football kind of benefits. A couple other teams that I do want to pick your brain about, kind of while we're in that top tier. Tell me about Utah and tell me about Iowa State because it feels like there are some signs that could, produce a championship, but it feels like those teams are maybe under the radar a little bit in their own right.
Yeah, I'll start with Utah because, I think everybody likes Devin Dampier, the new quarterback for Utah, coming from New Mexico. I know they kind of brought Devin and the Jason Beck, I believe, from New Mexico, and just kind of making Utah the New Mexico. And again, he is one of those guys that is just an electric factory. And, he can run, he can pass. He's a little bit like RG3 back in the day. And so I think that Kyle Whittingham is nearing the end of his career. When we talked to him at Big 12 Media Days, he was very non-committal about even coaching next year. And I think that with the year Utah had last year, with the injuries to Cam Rising and kind of, they're so used to just kind of getting to the postseason and having that floor that they don't go below, that he didn't want to go out like that. And so I think, when a guy like that is as optimistic about his team and his quarterback and the leadership that quarterback brings, I gotta, kind of trust the coach speak a little bit and kind of buy whatever hype he has. So I don't know if Utah is going to challenge for the Big 12 title. I think that's too big a ask. I have questions about the defense, even though the offensive line looks really good. And like I said, the quarterback is really good, but you just kind of want to see it. So, but I think they're going to be a tough out. They're going to be that team that nobody wants to play late in the year, that is going to be tough for anyone to face. So I like the direction that Utah is going, especially this year. And then Iowa State, you won't find a higher guy on Matt Campbell than me. I think he is he knows how to build a program. You mentioned before, I'm a Michigan State guy. And the one thing that Michigan State did during their run of success when Mark D'Antonio was there is they took the 2 stars and the 3 stars and turned them into NFL guys.
Yeah.
And that is what Matt Campbell has done year after year after year after year. And so, I love Rocco Becht. I love some of the receivers that they got this year. And I think that Matt Campbell is going to continue to kind of find those diamonds in a rough and polish them until they are just shining bright and send them to the next level, because he's done it year after year. And, again, I think Iowa State is one of those teams that certainly could contend for the Big 12 title and is absolutely going to cause somebody in this league just a horrific, just like painful loss. It's going to be fun. But yeah, the two teams that maybe aren't in the top tier, but are certainly pushing to get there.
Zach, this year's edition of Farmageddon, it's going to be played over there in Dublin, Ireland. We see this, the NFL started doing this. There's a huge market for the NFL overseas, but, what was kind of, I know this isn't obviously Baylor territory that you're kind of familiar with, but, what was kind of the thought process behind playing this game, overseas, especially over there in Ireland?
Well, we got to talk a little bit to Matt Campbell. I talked to Matt Campbell quite a bit at Big 12 Media Days, and then Brett Yormark was also talking about kind of the Big 12's position in the college football world. And right, you've got the Big 10 and SEC are certainly sucking up a lot of airwaves, and people like to talk about the SEC, and they get good ratings and all of this. Well, I think that this is another way that the Big 12 can get some attention. And I whatever you want to say about Notre Dame and Florida State, did they play Florida State and Georgia Tech last year? I want to say, but like it brought attention to the league, it brought attention to the school, and frankly, in the changing world of college athletics, where TV networks control a lot of this narrative, like attention is what you're fighting for, and to have an awesome rivalry like Farmageddon and those two fan bases and those two schools who play such distinct styles. And it's been an even series if you look over the course of the entire 100 and some odd year rivalry. Like, you're going to get a good game, you're going to get some rabid fans, and you're going to get attention, which are three things that the Big 12 desperately needs. And so, like, I think it's a trend that is going to continue, and I think that the Big 12 and Brett Yormark they're going to be at the forefront of it, and I think that's good for everyone.
And then the last couple of years, outside of Arizona State making the playoff last year, the kind of draw of the league has been Colorado. Deion Sanders, he's going to be back healthy coaching this year, but no more Shedeur Sanders, no more Travis Hunter. Just kind of what are your thoughts on where Colorado is right now and where they could, potentially finish among the league?
Man, that is Colorado and Deion is just so fascinating. Like they're so different, and he is such a unique personality. Love him or hate him, you watch him, and like that is such a unique school and a unique just thing. And I think that Caden Salter, Juju Lewis, he brought both of those guys to Big 12 Media Days, which is kind of weird. He kind of admitted, I don't know who my starting quarterback is going to be. And so I think that's, again, where it starts. Caden Salter is probably the leader just because of what he did at Liberty. But, man, Juju Lewis, he's a confident guy. He should be a senior in high school right now, and he's competing for a D1 spot. Like, again, I think Colorado is one of those teams that's going to hop up and surprise someone. I think they're going to be kind of more lucky to get to a bowl game, but I think they might pick off, one or two pretty good teams that are trying to push for the Big 12 title while they're doing it. So I love what Deion brings. I love what kind of his attitude and kind of a different perspective than we're all used to. I think that Colorado is a great addition for the Big 12 and just a great kind of story overall just to be around and to cover.
Talking with Zach Smith, all things Big 12 as part of our conference preview series. He is the writer for the WACO Tribune. And Zach, we talked about Baylor a moment ago. Talk to me a little more, though, about Texas Tech and why maybe they can win this league. Because, man, I'm scrolling through ESPN and I'm reading their top three transfers. All three of them hail from Texas Tech now. They got Bailey coming in from Stanford, Sampson coming in from North Carolina, and then Hunter from UCF. Why is Texas Tech maybe a team that could make a run for this year?
Money. I mean, they're throwing more money in college athletics than anyone, and well, at least publicly, and they're kind of shouting about it a little bit. There's a lot of people here in Waco that don't like Texas Tech. That's a big rivalry, and so hopefully they don't get mad at me saying this, but I think they're doing a great job. I think that they are absolutely building a team that can compete and building a program that can compete for the long haul. And absolutely, with the money that they have, even as NIL starts to kind of get regulated a little bit, man, they can really, really compete moving forward here. And some of those transfers, last year, Baylor brought in a bunch of transfers, and we didn't know how much it was going to work. And it took a few games. It took a heartbreaker at Colorado for things to really click in. And so I think with Texas Tech, I agree that, all these transfers and all this money, like there's a reason they're highly recruited and there's a reason they're highly paid, but I kind of want to see it. And I think that even if they struggle to start the year, and I just think they need to be patient. Joey McGuire needs to be patient, and Texas Tech fans need to be patient because, to borrow from Joel Embiid, like, trust the process. Like, I think it's a process, and Texas Tech it's gonna get there, but it might take a couple games, and the sky is not falling. So, but yeah, I am high on Texas Tech, but I kind of still have some questions just because I want to see how all these highly paid and highly thought after prospects fit together.
Kind of seems in SEC parlance, kind of seems like Ole Miss, what you kind of described a little bit. Man, you bring in a lot of transfers, and yeah, if they all work out, they could really be impactful, but it kind of takes them a little time. And then even if it doesn't all work out, we're watching the NFL draft the next year, and there's like 12 players going from Ole Miss, or in this case, Texas Tech, it seems like.
Right. And Ole Miss had their moments, and Lane Kiffin, I think, sold that program very well and sold kind of his process very well. The Joey McGuire is doing the exact same thing. Like, he has a very clear focus and a very clear, like, this is what I'm going to do. Here's the end goal. Here's how we get there. So, yeah, it's kind of a wait and see, but it's going to be fun to watch regardless.
Zach, what if I told you that Rich Rodriguez will be back in Morgantown? Pat White would be back in Morgantown, and Noel Devine would be back in Morgantown. But unfortunately for Rich Rod, those two guys are now his assistant coaches. What are the prospects that's tugging at my heartstrings, thinking I get so nostalgic thinking about those great teams and those great memories? But what are the realistic expectations for West Virginia as they try and rebuild?
Well, I think they should be shooting for a bowl game. And with so much transition, what do they bring in? 60 some transfers, something crazy like that. Like, again, Rich Rodriguez has shown that he can do it at the biggest level. And I think what he did at Jacksonville State the last few years has really set him up for success in Morgantown. And I think that, again, it's going to take time, but if there's a guy that I trust more than Neil Brown, who was there before, like, West Virginia has a passionate fan base. Morgantown is a great college town, one of probably my favorite town in the Big 12, just geography wise, but they can do it. And so I think expectations for this year, let's just try to get to a bowl game. Let's just kind of lay the foundation and kind of build for the future, because Rich Rodriguez is a guy that can do it and has proven it and will do it at Morgantown once again.
Calvin, anything before we let Zach get out of here?
Zach, kind of still looking at this ESPN conference preview. This has West Virginia, Central Florida, Oklahoma State, Houston, Cincinnati, and Arizona as long shots to kind of win the conference. Arizona State, they went 3-9 the year before they made the playoff. Is there a team out of this category that not necessarily can make the playoff, but can kind of make a run at the top of the league?
Yeah, for that, give me Houston. I am a huge Willie Fritz fan. I watched Connor Wedgman. I covered him a few times at A&M. Just a good quarterback. I think he's going to fit that system really well. One of my coworkers here in Waco used to work with Willie Fritz when he was at Blinn College, which is not too far from here. And, just his program building and his ability to, again, get the most out of kind of maybe overlooked people has just shown time and time again. And so I really think out of that group, Houston is going to make a leap. And, I'm looking, again, everything for me is kind of through Baylor tinted glasses. I know in the last game of the season, Baylor is hosting Houston. And that game might carry significance for everyone involved, both Big 12 title and bowl games and everything. So Houston out of that group is the one that I would expect to take the biggest leap this year.
Anything else we need to know, Zach, before we let you go? Any Heisman talk, any hopefuls out of the Big 12 this year? Because, man, for a long, long time, we got so used to the quarterbacks from that league being right there in the mix.
Yeah. Well, I would have to mention Sam Leavitt. I think that I think Arizona State's going to throw it all up and down with Jordan Tyson, their wide receiver. And then to keep it close to where I'm at, Sawyer Robertson. I think he is a really, really under the radar Heisman pick right now, especially we talked about that offensive line, Bryson Washington, the running back. They've got Josh Cameron, who's one of the best receivers in the league, coming back, and they just got Ashton Hawkins back after a little fight with the NCAA. So, I would not count out Sawyer Robertson, even though that's a kind of some home cooking here, to be a dark horse Heisman candidate.
Hey, speaking of cooking, you mentioned it made me think. What do you smell? What The Rock is cooking? Can you secure us some WWE Friday Night SmackDown? It seems like they've got a little partnership going with the Big 12 ahead of this season.
It's so that is such a Big 12 move. Just I talked about attention. They had Big E walking around over there, Karen. I know Big E is a former, I think he played at Iowa, but former football guy,
maybe wrestler too.
Yeah, right. Big E, the wrestler.
Yeah,
he was a
right.
wrestler. He was walking around at media days, just strutting his stuff. And man, I wish they were coming to Waco because I would absolutely go to that. But it is so cool. The championship trophy for the Big 12 is literally a wrestling belt. It's the greatest. I love this collaboration. I could not love it more. It's awesome. But yeah, if if they ever come to Waco, I'll get you tickets. No problem.
Perfect. Zach, we thank you so much for your time, brother, and thank you for covering the Big 12 as diligently as you do, and we will keep tabs on the season. Amidst all the mayhem, we may turn to you to decipher the tea leaves as the season unfolds.
Sounds like a plan. I'll be here covering the chaos.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach.
Thank
that
you.
was Zach
Thanks,
Smith
Zach.
of the Waco Tribune, and man, Calvin, we heard so much good stuff right there. That's one of those fun leagues. It reminds you of the old Pac-12 after dark. I mean, there are just so many good games on any given week. You may not have a interest in the world about Houston versus Baylor, and then you're just sucked into a game for 4 hours because the action is so fun.
Yeah, and then like I mentioned with Zach, ever since Oklahoma and Texas left the league, we got used to those two and Baylor for a little bit, kind of running the league for a long time, and now all those teams that we got used to finishing in the middle of the pack, they've kind of, most of them have taken a leap forward, and even the ones that didn't are still fighting for, the middle of the league standings, and even the teams that finish closer to the bottom a lot of the times are still at least pretty decent football teams.
Absolutely. And I love what Zach said. Obviously, I'm a little high on Baylor, I think, personally, but I'm also kind of going to keep tabs on Texas Tech because, one other thing, too, Mo and I broke it down a lot, obviously, during the softball season. They are clearly investing in their student athletes, and it feels like that is where maybe that's their calling card. So keep your eyes on Texas Tech as we kind of navigate going forward. Good stuff. Thanks to Zach for joining us. And tomorrow, as I've been told, we'll be breaking down ACC. And then coming up on Thursday, Mo and David Wilson will have a Big Ten primer as we creep closer into SEC, where we'll go school by school all the way up until college football kickoff. Speaking of college football, speaking of kickoff, one door closes, one door opens. Zach goes out. Chip Walters comes in. The Blue Raider voice will join us on the other side of this timeout. We will talk all things MTSU. We will break down the MTSU Blue Raiders and their football media day. All that and much, much more on the other side as hour number 2 of MSST presented by TOA of Columbia comes your way right after this.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today. Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour number 2 of Main Street Sports today, presented by the fine folks at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, rolls along right now. And on Tuesdays, that means it's time to check in with our good friend, the charismatic, the enigmatic. He is the Blue Raider voice. He's Chip Walters. He joins us now. Chip, good afternoon.
Thank you, and good afternoon, both of you and the other Matics, the Automatics, and the Troublematic. But good to see you guys.
Yeah, well, we'll leave some of those up to the mind to wonder about as Chip Walters joins us each and every single Tuesday alongside Calvin White. And Calvin and Chip already had to separate them two a little bit in the green room here. They're going back and forth. Us Blue Raiders, we like to fight everybody else, but we also like to fight amongst ourselves a little bit every now and again then too, Chip.
Just a little bit. It's all just funning, as we like to say out on Carter's Creek. Just funning.
It keeps us young, and speaking, man, of keeping us young, but also kind of making us feel a little bit old, Chip. It feels like we talked to you a dozen times or more in the last couple of years about the Student Athlete Performance Center. But wow, we finally reached it, and we finally had what was an awesome ceremony by all accounts last week as they unveiled that thing officially.
Yeah, I hope, and I know Maurice was there, and for folks who couldn't be there, there's several video tours that people have put together that are online and available. Last week was just, we had number one, there was a private event on Tuesday night of last week that had one of the biggest groups of political luminaries I've ever seen on campus, all there in a tribute to Steve and Denise Smith. And then on Wednesday, probably one of the biggest crowds we've ever seen on campus for a building ribbon cutting. And it happened on the hottest day of the year, so far. And it was the thing that really struck me was how many people showed up? I mean, we had a tent that seated probably close to 300, and there was at least that many more, if not twice that many more, outside the tent. And and also over in the Hall of Fame building watching on a live stream. But not only that they were there for the ceremony, but when it was over, they hung around and moved around to the other side of the building where the actual ribbon cutting took place. And then that's where the main entrance is. And they turned people loose in that building. And the ceremony started at 9:00. It was over about 9:45. So by the time the ribbon cutting was done, it was almost 10 o'clock. But for the next 2 hours, it was like, there's old stories about how when Andrew Jackson was president, that he had these wild parties in the White House and people just ran amok in the White House. Well, these people behaved themselves, but for 2 hours, people just made their way on their own from one end to the building to the other, and from top to bottom. They just checked out everything. And when you think about this, there were over 450 people who invested in the building and with private donations. And, it seems like they were all there to be part of it and to really kind of soak it all in. And it's, from the locker room. I mean, people are going around just sitting in lockers and walking through the weight room, just, amazed, in the player lounge and all the nice little things they have in the equipment room now for storage, movement. And then you get to the second floor where you've got the coaches' offices, the breakout rooms, and the full team theater. And the media room is on the second floor. And then the SRM Concrete Club on the top floor. Like I said, everybody just kind of took it in. It is certainly there's no question about it, with the number of people who showed up for that, took it all in. It's certainly a point of pride for the Blue Raider community.
Chip, you said all that, and I couldn't help but wonder, it sounded to me kind of like a term that you yourself are probably pretty familiar with. It kind of sounded like an open house a little bit.
It really, well,
perhaps.
That's what it was. That's kind of what it was. And that was the thing, was everybody wanted to see it. They'd heard about it and all of that, and heard about, there was a lot of lead up to the ribbon cutting about, how many footballs you could put in that building, like you could put 3.5 million footballs in there. There's 53 miles of communication cable. There's 5 miles of steel girders and things like that. There was all this kind of stuff leading up, and but people wanted to see it in person, and they did. Just going up through, and the thing was, and a tip of the hat to the football staff, because once people got to the second floor where football kind of lives, they were very gracious hosts. There'd be coaches in the offensive line room looking at film. Well, people come stick their head in, the coach, come on in, take a look, and just enjoy it. And it was, it was pretty moving to see people go through there. And then on Saturday morning, they had a football alumni private deal where the football alums could come back. They were there for the end of practice, spent time with Coach Mason, and then they got to go through the building themselves. And so, we're going to see several more of the private tours like that. But the players had their day, and I was really tickled to see that Teddy Morris, who besides Kevin Byard is the only other Blue Raider to have his jersey retired, he was there for the football player alumni open house, and he was blown away with it. So that was kind of a really feel good moment from the weekend.
Chip, last year, obviously having a new head coach was kind of the thing people were looking at to, kind of hype themselves up for the season. With this building opening this close to the start of the season, is that just another thing that's kind of, getting people excited for year 2 of Derek Mason?
Well, I think it's part of it, but it's and he is very quick to tell you, Coach Mason, I'm talking about. He's very quick to tell you that a lot of things, those who have been given or expectations are now high and have been raised, and they're very well aware of that they need the product on the field has to get better. I'll tell you one of the things that I've been most impressed with from Coach Mason is owning what last year was, not a good football team. It has not run from that. He talks about he looks at, okay, here's what we were not good on third down, and here's what it was. We were not good in penalties. And one of the most penalized teams in Conference USA. He goes, and that comes from not being a good disciplined football team. That's not what I'm about. So, I think you're going to see a big turnaround in that part of it. It's a nice thing to have, and one thing you can do, you can tell from the player standpoint, just walking in that building, they feel like, okay, we're big time here. And when you were having to have your weight room in a dance studio for the last 18 months, you were having to divide up the football press box with curtains so you could have individual group meetings. And so now everything you do from a football standpoint is in one building. And, Caitlin Manning this morning, we did a 2-hour live stream. Caitlin is the chief of staff for football, and really just she's the detail person. And she said on our air today that last night they got done with their final meetings, and she noticed there was a couple of players who had brought pillows with them. And she said, what's that all about? And they said, well, this place is so nice, and we've got to be back here at 5 a.m. We're just going to sleep on the couch in the player lounge. And she goes, no, you have apartments. Go home, get away from here, then come back. And so it's the thing is, it's a place where the players want to hang out. It's where they want to be. They can go in. Coach Mason was talking today. They can come off the practice field, take a shower, and go directly to, let's say they're a defensive back. They can go to the DB room and they can put practice film up there before the coach ever comes in, and they have their team meeting. He said, you can go in there as a player now. You can already see your mistakes and know what the answers ought to be when you get asked about it in your meeting. So, there's an old term that I remember, it's a military term, and it's called esprit de corps. And I think when you look up that term and look up the meaning of esprit de corps, I think this building gives the football team a level of esprit de corps and confidence, and as they start to move forward. And we're now 5 days into fall camp, and they'll go full pads tomorrow. So starting to see some good things. And I think you're looking up on dictionary.com or something. You're probably looking it up. So what is the definition?
Well, it kind of reminds me of me, you, Calvin, and Mo, right? In that sense, a feeling of pride, fellowship, and common loyalty shared by the members of a particular group. So
do you think that you think that word fits?
I think it fits for us, but I certainly think it fits for what you're describing with the team now. And as you kind of said that, just having, been around the country and just been fortunate enough to see some facilities, yeah, there is that kind of sense of ownership / you just want to be there. And it is a lot easier to sell, hey, we're going to have a quick meeting, or, can you pop by for 15 minutes when you have a great spot to go to, as opposed to, hey, yeah, come meet us in the top of the football press box, but go behind 2 layers of curtains and things of that nature. That just kind of it's very unmeasurable in a sense, but man, it's got to count for some good vibes, if nothing else.
And I mean, you've got your strength and conditioning. You've got there's a nutrition station there that you go and you just go pick up a smoothie, and then you've got the hydrotherapy area, and then you've got the red light therapy a room in there where you go in and that gets your blood flowing and moves inflammation out of your joints, things like that, and get you recovered in a quicker fashion. So it's a one-stop shop now, and then you've got a straight shot from the locker room out onto the field. So it's a new world for the guys who've been around for a while. They're walking around grinning like a possum eating a sweet potato, because Nick Vattiato talked about it today. When he got here, we were in the old weight room. He's gone from the old weight room, which was a nice place, to the dance studio, and now his 5th year, he is now in this new thing. At the press conference today, he kind of waxed poetically about getting from point A to point B here in his career, and it was pretty good. He's a good talker, and really has a good grasp on what's going on.
2 things. I know my old yoga instructor, Miss Jennifer Craze, will probably be glad to see some of the facilities be able to return to her full use. And then number 2, Chip, producer Mark wants to know, give us the approximation. How far is it from the Uncle Nearest bar to the nutrition center? I don't know what producer Mark is thinking there, but
first floor to third floor.
Okay, so that's a good distance. So you have you have to make a real choice if you want to go to one or the other. It sounds like
that's right. And the players will be allowed at the nutrition station, and probably not at the other.
And vice versa, perhaps. One thing I did want to ask you, Chip, is parking wise, does this have any sort of impact? Is everything kind of going to be flow as usual, at least in terms of football this year?
About the same, yeah. And they'll. One thing is the old Industrial Studies building down along Falconberry Drive, like right when you turn in on Falconberry on the right, that building is slated for demolition because the new Industrial Studies building has the ribbon cut on it tomorrow. And so everything that was in Industrial Studies, like mechatronic engineering, things like that, that all moves over to a brand new space on the backside of campus. So with that being slated for demolition, there was a couple of what I used to call secret parking spots that I knew about that now no longer they're no longer a viable option. I'll put it that way. So, but as far as Greenland Drive and the areas around the baseball stadium, and when it comes for tailgating, and there's some prime tailgating spots that are out there that are free, and parking is either free or minimal, that especially like around the baseball field, that you're within a literal pitching wedge of coming into the football stadium. It's worth a trip to kind of scout out your spot for August 30th and in particular for homecoming on August or September 20th, because I think those are going to be really nice crowds for those games. And then you get into the conference season after that. But, when you look at schedules, to me, I look at the schedule, and Calvin, you probably had a chance to look at it too. When you think about it, the schedule stacks up as favorably for Middle, I'm guessing, as you probably remember it. You look, your first 3 conference games are at Kennesaw. Then you've got the 2 brand new members. You've got Missouri State at home, and then you go to Delaware. And then right after that, you've got a very much retooled Jacksonville State team. So, there are, in my opinion, winnable games and opportunities there early in the conference schedule to get you off to a good start.
Yeah, and then Chip, obviously, last year under a first-year head coach, I think a lot of people expected a ton of roster turnover. I think there was 60-something new players last year, but even this year, there's that number 62. There's that number of new players again. How does this year's roster kind of compare to last year's?
much bigger physically. And that's one thing. It's pretty obvious when you look at the roster. They have gone for size, and they have been very specific about finding playmakers. They seem to be very confident with their wide receiver room. Again, the offensive and defensive lines are both bigger. Coach Mason today in his media availability after practice, with it being media day, everybody was there today, and he talked about so he was asked a question about the roster turnover. 62 new players, 42 of which are scholarship, 20 are walk-ons. He said basically that there were 3 players last year that left on their own for bigger money through the transfer portal. He goes, in his words, he goes, we put a lot more into the portal ourselves that we needed to upgrade. So I think you'll probably see some of that settle down. In particular, when you compare the 2 high school classes he signed, the first one came 5 days after he got the job, and he will tell you, he goes, I was never in one home of any high school player they signed. He goes, this year they signed 17 more high school players in December. He goes, I was in every home of those guys. So I think they feel a lot more confident about what they brought in from a high school standpoint and also from a portal standpoint, instead of, having to do a year's worth of work in a matter of 5 days as far as their high school signees, and in a matter of 2 months or a month and a half when it came to signing portal guys his first year. This year, they were able to do their full due diligence on all of that, and I think they feel much better about it.
And Nick Vadiato, like you said, he's in his 5th year there, and whenever he first got there, and he was kind of playing behind some of those guys like Chase Cunningham, the last 2 or 3 years, he's kind of been talked about as one of the better quarterbacks in the conference. Now that Caden Salter at Liberty's gone, where do you think Nick Vadiato kind of stands among the league's top quarterbacks?
Well, most of the preseason publications have him and the quarterback at FIU, and his name escapes me right off the bat.
Keon Jenkins.
Yeah, Keon Jenkins. They have, a lot of places like Phil Steele, things like that, have them listed, and also the young man who's transferred into Western Kentucky. So, but Nick is by far the most. He has the most experience of any returning quarterback in Conference USA, and he's only the second quarterback in middle history to ever throw for 3,000 yards in back-to-back seasons. So he's now has a chance to do that for a 3rd year in a row, and you certainly hope that find some wood to knock on, and hope he has a very healthy senior year, and it was he was part of the media gathering today as well, and he was asked about where he is from a mental standpoint and a leadership standpoint today, as opposed to the first time he ever played, which was 5 years ago. Chase Cunningham got hurt, and he had got thrown into a game at Western, and I think threw 5 picks, and really it was just not fair to him. But he was the only option at the time, and to watch him grow up and to have the opportunities to leave that he's had for, as he told it today, he goes, I had chances at a larger paycheck. He goes, but for me, it's more important to finish what I started here. And he goes, I owe this university something. He goes, because this university and 2 different football staffs have given me so many opportunities. And it's like, man, this kid gets it. And you wish you could hear more guys like him across the country. And so he's a guy you can really root for and look forward to big things.
Absolutely. And when you hear comments like that, I mean, it kind of makes you already think, could go down as one of the all-time greats, not just a great player, but a great Blue Raider, as we talk about the career of Nick Vadiato. Talking with Chip Walters here, the Blue Raider voice. Chip, before we let you get out of here, speaking of great things at MTSU, it is sometimes forgotten that they're student athletes first, but every now and again we like to remind everybody, and 2 teams in particular on campus have had some great academic success lately.
It seems, over the last 3 or 4 weeks, it seems like we've had something to talk about, and this is just in the last couple of days. Number one, the men's golf team recognized as a recipient of the 24-25 Platform Golf Team Academic Award given by the Golf Coaches Association of America. Write this down. The Blue Raiders had a 3.527 cumulative GPA during the academic year, much like all of our GPAs combined. And for the 24th consecutive year, Middle Tennessee Women's Soccer has received the United Soccer Coaches College Team Academic Award. And we thought that men's golf was good. Soccer had a team GPA of 3.69. And again, they've won this same award 24 straight years in a row. So that's pretty impressive.
That is impressive. Like you said, you're talking collective, and I don't know about Calvin, but Chip and I's GPA, if you combine them together, you might approach some of those numbers, I think.
Yep.
Maybe.
We'll give Calvin, he's the wordsmith over there, so we'll give him a little extra credit.
Hey, real quick, while we're touching on soccer, I do get, man, speaking of longevity, Aston has still got the troops kind of rallied yet again. It feels like you can set your calendars by that academic success, but also some strong play on the pitch for Aston's Army there.
Yep, they had a blue-white scrimmage, I think, yesterday, and they'll have a couple of preseason games here in about 2 weeks, I guess, and look forward to Aston's group. Conference USA is a pretty strong soccer league, and so wish them all the best. And I'm looking here real quick. Soccer schedule, it'll pop up hopefully on my computer. They will play in an exhibition game against Southern Miss this Saturday in Hattiesburg, then August 14th at Belmont, then August 17th at home against Jackson State, August 21st against Alabama A&M, and August 24th against Indiana State. And then they'll have another exhibition on the 28th at South Alabama and home against West Georgia, all before Labor Day.
Whew.
So that's getting everything ready before they will. Their biggie will be back-to-back games on September 7th and 11th at home against Vanderbilt and Tennessee Tech, and then they'll open conference play September 21st against Jacksonville State. So, but yeah, you're right. Aston's Army, they always start when the weather is hot. That's for sure.
And even men's golf has won 4 or 5 straight conference championships, right?
They are no, they did not win the conference championship this year, but they were in match play, and so they're going to be I think he's pretty coach is pretty excited about the group he's got coming in, and women's golf had a very good recruiting year, and Isabella Johnson, who is from Murfreesboro, played at PCA. She is playing this week in the women's U.S. Amateur, And so I want to wish her all the very best.
Good stuff from Chip Walters, the Blue Raider voice. Make sure you follow him on Twitter at ChooseChip. Chip, it's hot, but the facilities are rolling. Media day in the books. We look forward to catching up with every visit we have with you. Means we're one visit closer to the start of football season.
That's correct. So next Tuesday will be within 3 weeks of the opening of the season. So it's coming. It's coming.
It's a coming, and we look forward to that just as much as we look forward to visiting with you each and every single Tuesday. Chip Walters, thank you so very much for your time as always.
All right. See you, boys.
Thank you, Chip. Good stuff there from our good friend. Make sure you follow Chip again on Twitter at ChooseChip. As Calvin and I, the two MT alums, will link together here on the other side of this timeout. Calvin will dip into the grab bag. I teased this earlier in the show. We like to go from preps to pros, and we'll do that in this segment. But one story in particular will take us from preps to pros. So make sure you stick around for that. That'll be on the other side of this timeout, and we'll close the show with Top 5 Tuesday. Calvin and I will debate our top 5 things that we love about high school football. It's all coming your way as we bring you down the home stretch. Hour number 2 of Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia after this.
Deep in a forest at Nashville Zoo, new creatures here for you to view. Phantoms graced in black and white swing high in trees of dappled light. In rocky crags tall and steep, small antelopes with nimble feet. A wise old man with beard of white, a sentry perched on stony height. Amidst it all a hunter lies, with coat of gold and steely eyes. A new adventure just for you. Leopard Forest at Nashville Zoo. Open now.
They walk among us, but at 240 miles per hour, they become something more. They're thrill seekers, risk takers, and maybe just a little bit unhinged. Buckle up. This new era of speed, this racing revolution, it's just getting started.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50-plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Hour number 2, Main Street Sports Today, presented as always by the fine folks at the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia, rolling right along. Good combo just a moment ago with Chip Walters, the Blue Raider voice. Great combo with our good friend Zach Smith of the WACO Tribune in hour number 1 as part of our Big 12 conference preview. A reminder, Calvin and David Wilson are in the saddle tomorrow. I believe, set to be joined by Heather Williams of WCYB. Calvin, I can only imagine what a sports reporter in Bristol outside of NASCAR would have to talk about on that segment tomorrow.
Yeah, that's tough. That's just tough. I don't know what else to say about that. You know, outside of, I can't really think of anything that's even close to Bristol that you could talk about outside of NASCAR.
Mo and I broke it down a little bit yesterday, but then after the show, I saw a picture on the internet. It wasn't that they ran out of hot dogs, but they ran out of buns. And they were charging full price for the full glizzy, and all you got was the hot dogs. So, I mean, it was a tough scene. I'm somewhat envious that you guys get to talk to Heather about that tomorrow. Did not seem like a great time at times, at least for the folks in Bristol. But that'll be coming up on tomorrow's show, and we'll also continue our college football previews, ACC and Big Ten still to follow later this week. Speaking of ACC, a former ACC quarterback, Calvin, as we mentioned, we teased this a couple of times. We like to go from preps to pros, and this story in particular will cover the full circle. Mo and I mentioned a couple of weeks ago that Miami Northwestern High School Miami, is coached by none other than Teddy Bridgewater, former NFL quarterback. Teddy, however, has found himself, after guiding Miami Northwestern to a state championship, he was suspended by the school, kind of some self-reported violations, stemming from perhaps, quote, impermissible benefits. Turns out a lot of those benefits, though, might have come out of Teddy's own pocketbook himself. So kind of a different story for a different day, or a different debate for a different day, I guess. But Calvin, kind of covering the preps angle there, Teddy said, you know what, I don't necessarily know how long this suspension is going to last. I don't necessarily know what's going on, but I got bigger fish to fry. Turns out, latest report, at least according to Adam Schefter as well as some others, turns out Teddy Bridgewater is putting the high school kind of, at least for now, on hold. Expected to sign a deal with the Tampa Bay Bucks and possibly join his 11th NFL season. Some news coming down today.
Yeah, and outside of, it says the quarterback, if Teddy Bridgewater ends up signing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, he'll be a part of a quarterback room with Baker Mayfield, Kyle Trask, Michael Pratt, and Connor Bazelak. Now, I don't think anybody would expect him to beat out Baker Mayfield for that starting job, but Teddy Bridgewater, he didn't blow you away as a player, but he was still a pretty good player. So I think that, maybe in his mind, he thinks that he could potentially work his way up to kind of that backup position and kind of take that spot from Kyle Trask and kind of somewhat revive his NFL career a little bit.
That part is interesting to me. And, Mo and I had even referenced it, when the Levis injury comes down. I was kind of joking, but maybe kind of not, when I said, maybe they kick the tires on Teddy Bridgewater. And, he would be in my opinion, a great backup for Cam Ward. For two reasons, right? Number one, a wealth of information for a young rookie quarterback to kind of lean on. And then number two, if kind of heaven forbid an injury pops up, you got him at your disposal. This situation, though, and particularly with Trask kind of being in there, that's kind of an interesting thing, because it feels like you could maybe still kind of groom him into being kind of a somewhat future puzzle piece, as far as whether a trade or, something that you could be kind of apt to tinker with. But when you bring Bridgewater in the mix, I don't see any reason or rationale why you don't see him as envisioned as your backup at this point.
Yeah, and, even Kyle Trask, he was the backup there when Tom Brady was the quarterback there. So Kyle Trask has kind of been fighting for 3 or 4 years to kind of get his crack in the rotation. And, they went straight from Tom Brady to Baker Mayfield, and he hasn't really got his chance to break through into a starting job yet. So it'll be interesting to see what happens with Kyle Trask if Teddy Bridgewater ends up signing and then, potentially even makes a run at the backup job.
Yeah, it seems like, if you're Trask, maybe you don't feel, he might be coming for you as far as the backup, but if you're Pratt or Bazelak, buckle up. Because that could be a tough battle that's brewing there. Again, that's kind of the report coming down today. Bridgewater retired in 2023 to take over at Miami Northwestern. We've talked about it a number of times, leading them to a state championship last year before this latest information. And Calvin, he even latched on at the, kind of speaking of a similar situation with Hendon Hooker as the backup quarterback in Detroit. We saw Bridgewater kind of link with them toward the end after his state tournament coaching run was over last year. So Bridgewater still got it, and I'm going to be fascinated by this story. How long does he stick around? And then how long does this quote-unquote suspension last? And does he go back to Miami Northwestern. So kind of a full-blown story there. Like I said, we go from preps to the pros, literally. Teddy Bridgewater reportedly signing with the Tampa Bay Bucks on a deal. Interesting stuff there. More in the college realm. I believe there's 7 episodes. Calvin, have you already watched all 7 episodes of the new SEC documentary on Netflix that apparently dropped today?
I have not.
Okay, well, I'm with you then.
I don't even think I have Netflix on my TV.
Well, if you want to watch any given Saturday, you're going to have to rectify that situation. And Netflix does release the series, and it will be interesting to see. This is kind of in the same vein for those that are familiar with the Formula One series that they produced, kind of the same vein of the NASCAR docuseries that dropped earlier this year. But it is out, and it is on Netflix. Calvin and I have not seen it. But one interesting wrinkle, Calvin, is Tennessee was one of the programs that was followed, the only college football playoff program, it turns out, that was followed last year. So if you're looking for a little postseason juice, the Vols got it there. But one thing that's not usually seen as much publicly, you kind of see it a little bit more on the social media, but the Tennessee, we don't give a damn about the whole school of blank, or we don't give a damn about the whole state of Alabama traditionally. Turns out Netflix caught a lot of that, and Vanderbilt was kind of in the crosshairs of the Vols last year.
Yeah, it's kind of cool to get a behind-the-scenes look at some of these kind of traditions that other schools do. Tennessee's been doing this thing for a long time. After those rough couple of years ago they had against Vandy, when I think Vanderbilt beat them 3 or 4 years in a row, Tennessee's kind of retaken the lead on that rivalry there and has kind of put a beating on Vanderbilt the last couple of years.
Yeah, and so if you're a Commodores fan, maybe skip through that part. If you're a Vols fan, you may want to embrace that part because it didn't necessarily go the greatest after that Vanderbilt game. But Tennessee, give them props, though. Like I said, they were the only team that was featured that did make the college football playoff out of the SEC that allowed camera access. And the early tea leaves are that they kind of shoved that in there after the fact. So if you're looking for a little extra Vols juice, you're looking for some SEC, well, we've got you covered with previews of every single SEC school coming up over the next couple of weeks. But if you're looking for more, it is out there apparently on Netflix. Hey, Calvin, speaking of the Vols, did you have Derek Dooley in your news headline bingo card? Have you thought about Derek Dooley in the last, 3 or 4 years perhaps?
I don't think I've thought about Derek Dooley in a lot longer than the last 3 or 4 years.
He's good to pop up on the sideline every now and again. And when he did, famously, I think he was on the Cowboys and he just is in the background and you're like, wait a second, that's Derek Dooley. Turns out, though, we might be hearing a little more about the former Vols head coach, who Football Scoop points out he went 1-2 while playing in his home state of Georgia as a head coach. He's hoping to improve that mark to at least 2-2. Turns out that Dooley, the former Tennessee coach, announced on Monday that he is going to run for a U.S. Senate seat in the state of Georgia for the upcoming 26 elections. Turns out, according again to Football Scoop, his announcement did not identify which party he will run, but he did make a statement and video signifying that he's going to run to win the Republican primary, or maybe perhaps going to do so as a right-leaning independent. So for all of the things about Dooley, when he got hired in Knoxville, everybody kind of latched onto the fact that he was a lawyer, and I don't know, in a way I kind of bought into it a little bit. I was thinking, okay, well, maybe he's going to at least make some smart decisions. We know how it kind of turned out in Knoxville. Hopefully, maybe if you're a Dooley fan or if you're a political ally, it goes a little better for him this go around.
Yeah, it's always interesting to see, football coaches get done with coaching football and they're just sitting at home one day and they're like, I'm going to get into politics. Tommy Tuberville's been doing this for a while down in Alabama. Tom Osborne, the former Nebraska coach, he did it back in the early 2000s. So I'm not well versed in the world of politics. Don't really keep up with it all that much. So for the purpose of this show, I guess we will keep an eye on what happens with Derek Dooley and his political ventures.
Yeah, and I guess the one kind of fascinating thing, Dooley's rap sheet or coaching tree, I guess, if you will. We mentioned head coach at Tennessee, 2010 to 2012. He was with the Cowboys from 13 to 17. Spent a year as the offensive coordinator at Missouri from 18, and then also the quarterback's coach, so 2 seasons, I guess, 18 to 19. Bounced around to the Giants for 2 seasons, one as an assistant offensive analyst, and then also as a tight ends coach. And then he did the unthinkable for the Vols fans. He joined Alabama for a couple of seasons as a senior offensive analyst. But Calvin, I guess where I'm going with that is, if you kind of dip your toes into the political realm, I'm real curious, seemingly he's a thoughtful guy. Seemingly he's thought this out. I'm wondering, does this mean he's finally closed the book on any sort of remaining football career that he kind of had?
Yeah, I guess that'll be another interesting part of this to kind of keep an eye on, when I guess it's kind of like your rivalries in football. Like if you're, like you said, whenever he was done coaching Tennessee, he went and coached at Alabama for a couple of seasons. I guess it would kind of be the same concept, whatever party he decides to run as in politics. I guess if he decides to, go coach another football team after that doesn't necessarily lean the same way he does, and there's a group of people that figures out what his political beliefs are, that's always something that people are willing to attack somebody else over. So I guess that'll be interesting to watch.
Yeah, I guess that's a good point. If nothing else, he's got thick skin from having coached in college football and professional football for a while, so nothing really that he probably hadn't heard before. We'll cap this story by saying Dooley announced, quote, "I'm not a part of the political establishment, and I haven't spent my life climbing the political ladder. For 30 years, I've led people from all walks of life and fought every day to create hope and opportunity for them and their families. The foundation of football," there we go, he's tugging at the heartstrings. "The foundation of football is the American spirit. You work hard, play by the rules, and keep fighting when adversity hits. You got a fair shot at achieving your dreams. As a coach, I wanted that for my players. And as your next U.S. Senator, I want that for all Georgians and all Americans." Yeah, he hit the high notes. So now we'll see how he hits it at the polls. Again, Derek Dooley, former Vols coach, longtime college and NFL staffer, announcing some political ambitions there. Shifting gears as we get ready to wrap up the grab bag. This one tugging at my heartstrings a little bit here, Calvin. Former Michigan national champion quarterback J.J. McCarthy. A lot of consternation about the Vikings and their plan to draft him, and we know kind of how last season turned out. He gets injured. And then we saw Sam Darnold go just supernova in his absence. But Sam Darnold has departed, and that kind of paved the way for McCarthy to get back in. And recovering from that injury, sounds like the Vikings plan to unveil McCarthy for the first time in their preseason opener Saturday when they take on the Houston Texans.
Yeah, when he got hurt last year, he kind of had the opportunity to kind of sit back and watch, maybe learn from Sam Darnold a little bit, how to be a quarterback in the NFL. There were some videos early on from training camp where he was, maybe missing some guys wide open and things like that. So it'll be interesting to see how J.J. McCarthy looks, not only in his second year in the league. The first is going to be his first as the starter, and then kind of how he looks after that injury.
Yeah, no word yet on how much he's going to play or if he's going to play any more in the preseason. But it turns out, or it looks like he will suit it up a little bit. Sam Howell and Brett Rippon, along with rookie Max Brosmer, are set to be your other Vikings QBs, as McCarthy will see some time at some point, sounds like, in Saturday's game versus the Texans. That is going to wrap up our grab bag segment. That will lead us into our final break here on Main Street Sports today. When we come back, it's Top 5 Tuesday, so Calvin and I will close the show. We'll give you our top 5 favorite things that we love about high school football. Stick around, folks. Final break here on Main Street Sports today, where we are presented by TOA of Columbia.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. A good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the PIC Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
At Delta Dental of Tennessee, we know our success begins and ends with providing superior quality service, and that includes serving those who need it most. This year, we're celebrating 25 years of giving back to the community we call home. Delta Dental, along with our Smile 180 Foundation, supports Tennessee's dental colleges and oral health education, children's hospitals, free and reduced cost dental clinics, and other like-minded charities. Here's to the next 25 plus years of ensuring healthy smiles.
There's a line that links us all. Most of the time, we don't even think about it, but it's everywhere. Illuminating our neighborhoods, empowering our businesses, and helping us to recharge. Whether it comes from our grids, the sun, or a kind heart, we believe in the power of good energy. And as your family and region continue to grow, you can trust that we'll always be there for you. Middle Tennessee Electric, bringing good energy.
Cruising into our final segment here on Top 5 Tuesday, presented by the TOA of Columbia. It's Main Street Sports Today, alongside Calvin White. Wade Neely sitting in the saddle here. Calvin and David Wilson will be in command tomorrow, and David and Mo set to take the reins on Thursday. Mo and yours truly will be back on Friday. Calvin, we've talked so much about football in this show today. I really didn't see any reason to deviate once we kind of went down that path. Are you prepared to give us your top 5 things we love about high school football?
I'm ready to go. You give me the number 1 pick?
Yeah, I'm a go for you. You kind of look like you're ready to take off here. So let's start us off. Our favorite things we love about high school football.
My first pick is going to be, at least in our kind of area of the world, it's the last pure level of the sport. We don't have a lot of guys, at least in the areas we cover, that are kind of, dabbling in the high school transfer portal and NIL, all that kind of stuff. You just got a bunch of kids that just go to school together, and they're out there practicing for 2 or 3 hours a day together, and they're just trying to go out there and win on Friday.
Yeah, just what you said it best. One of my longtime colleagues in high school football radio, Steve Pierce, used to say that it is like the last pure vestige of sports. And, some of that has changed a little bit as we've gotten further and further along. But yeah, that purity of high school football, that's got to be, that's the pick. So I'm glad that you nailed it with A1 overall there. Good one there. Number 2 for me. Or number 1 for me, number 2 overall. I'm going to go with this one. This one resonates with me and some smaller towns a little bit more. But I love the fact of the whole town showing up to games, especially at like the single A and 2A level, where if you ride through the town, pretty much all the businesses are closed. Or, like Friday Night Lights, you see the signs like gone to the game. I mean, just the fact that the whole town seemingly shows up to a stadium on a Friday night, that still resonates with me, and that's my first overall pick.
Yeah, and my second pick kind of piggybacks off my first. I'm going to go with just kind of the raw emotion that a lot of guys play with. Obviously, guys in college and the NFL are playing with a lot of emotion, but kids in high school aren't worrying about getting traded or contracts and things like that. So, kind of off that last point, it's just a bunch of guys that are hanging out every single day, just trying to get better. 99% of them are never going to play football past high school. And so, those last regular season games, those region championship games, and, for a lot of those kids, potentially state championship games are the biggest games they're going to play in. So just kind of seeing those kids go out there and, give it everything they have, even though they're not going to play at the next level, is cool to see.
Yep, fantastic stuff. I love that for a second pick there. My number 2 pick, I'm going to go way back in the time machine, and believe it or not, once upon a time, I was a 125-pound defensive back at Giles County High School, and my favorite thing was the Friday during the day and kind of during the afternoon in those build-up hours, especially for me because I didn't have much of an assignment, knowing I wasn't going to see much of the field that evening. Tells you about my level of acumen there. But just that Friday afternoon, jerseys in the hallways, the cheerleaders kind of hyping everybody up, and then obviously you cap with kind of a big pep session or pep rally to kind of get everybody going. Give me kind of the Friday feels at the school itself for my number 2 pick.
Yeah, and then my third pick, I'm going to go with the unpredictability. You know, it's unlike it's unlike college, like where 3 or 4 or 5 colleges always get the top guys. You know, we see it a lot of times in high school football. Kids or schools can have a really good player for 3 or 4 years, and then after he's gone, they never have a guy to replace him. So schools can go from 10-0 to 4-6 from year to year, and you just got to find a way to win games. So I really like the unpredictability aspect of high school football.
I love that too. Like you said, year to year, sometimes week to week, right? I mean, you could have a team that's 8-0 and they lose to a team that's 0-8. I mean, that stuff does happen at high school football. One thing, man, I'm glad you left me this one. This is one of my all-time favorites. I mean, it's a movie trope through and through. But I love the chain gang. The volunteer, there ain't no Hawkeye technology NFL. There ain't no Hawkeye technology at the high school football level. Usually it's some dads. You might even catch a dad out there smoking a cigarette on the sideline. But with the chain gang, it's kind of the volunteers and the locals. That just to me epitomizes what high school football is all about.
And in high school, you're lucky if you can find a really good chain.
Yeah, if you can find those guys, you're right.
Yeah. And then my second to last pick, I'm going to kind of go off what you said earlier about the whole, not really the whole town shutting down, but kind of that hyper local engagement. When you talk about people that do jobs like we do, if you're trying to find your high school sports news in most towns or cities, there's maybe 2 or 3 outlets that you can find that news and those scores and stuff like that. So it's really cool to see like when maybe somebody's parents or grandparents like have the newspaper with the scores and stuff in it that you put in there, and just kind of keeping up with the local scores and stuff because they know that's the only place they can get it.
Couldn't have said that any better myself. That would have been a good pick even if we didn't work for Main Street Media of Tennessee. How about that? I think you nailed it there. Number 4 for me. Giles County went through some changeover on this, but I love the PA announcer that's been there forever. Kind of a community legend. Like, that's Joe Osborne. He's done this since 1967. Every town seemingly has got a PA guy or girl that's done that for years and years and years, and they're just kind of a community legend. I love the old school PA announcers that's been there forever.
And it's really cool for teams that have their own radio type broadcast. Instead of just the PA, so people's parents and grandparents can listen in the car and on the phone and stuff like that. But my last pick is arguably the 1-1 of answers of things that especially people like us love about high school football. It's the media access. Us at the high school level, we don't have to go through sports information people and people that work in athletic departments to talk to the people that we want to talk to. When we go to games, it's stand on the sideline the whole time, watch the game, listen to the coach talk to the team on the field. And after they're done doing their thing, you just walk right up to the coach and the player that you need and just talk to them. And then you're in and out of there in the car in 10 minutes heading back toward the house.
Yep. Now I thought you were going to go concession stand. That would have been a nice benefit too. But yes, that access is invaluable. Running short on time, so my last one. I love when teams do this. When you got the family and friends down on the field after the games, not every school does that, but kind of just seeing the town and kind of seeing the community all down on the field supporting their student athletes. That's always kind of one of my favorites. So man, good list. Kind of getting us, producer Mark, wanted us to note that every now and again you go behind the bleachers with your loved one, back in high school. That's a different list, Mark. We see what you did, but that's a different list about high school football. That's going to wrap Top 5 Tuesday here on Main Street Sports today. We have been presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Come back tomorrow. It'll be Wild and Wacky Wednesday. Calvin and David Wilson will be sitting in the saddle, bringing you the latest for another 2 hours here on MSST. Good afternoon, folks. See you next time.